Hello, beer tubers, and welcome to another beer review with me, Peter, the master of hoppers. Today, checking out some beer from Sudden Death in Germany that I got courtesy of Beer Dome. So thanks a ton to Beer Dome for the beer. This is a can of their Lübi Premium Extra Pale Ale. So this is an Extra Pale Ale, also called an XPA. It's 5.5%, and there's no other info about this beer. Not even online. There's no. Well, you can find out the grist has both wheat, malts, and oats, but it's a style that is somewhat new. It's a little more than a decade old. It stems from Australia. There's a lot of breweries doing it. It's not clearly defined compared to other styles. Like a lot of modern beer is like very defined in what they are, but XPA I don't think has like official guidelines yet for competitions and stuff like that, as far as I remember. And it's something some me think like, okay, what does it mean extra pale? So extra light in color pale ale, or does it mean that it's extra hoppy? Does it mean more alcohol, whatever? It's still kind of loose. But it stems from Australia, and in general, it seems to me that it's pale, hoppy beer that's not as hoppy as an IPA, but a little bit more hoppy than a pale ale. But again, like all these modern styles often are a bit arbitrary, because what about a session IPA? What about a double dry hop pale ale? Like brewers do what they kind of want to do and play with and whatnot. And sometimes, try to also coin new styles. I've heard people talk, you remember Italian Pilsner, now West Coast Pilsner. Now I've heard people talk about Alsatian Pilsner or French Pilsner. I've heard people talk about all these things. And it's so funny, like people try to like neatly define things. Some things, Alsatian Pilsner could make sense because it's a place where they grow hops. And you could say, okay, that's maybe a style of lager where you are influenced by German tradition, but you only use French hops, right? But there's so much in beer that's a bit arbitrary with styles, and it's like a bit of fluff. And that's, I think, maybe a little bit what this style is, but a lot of breweries have embraced it, and it seems like it's a very good style to do for like core range brewing. I think even Firestone Walker has an XPA now. So these seem to be gaining in popularity, and they are these like very approachable hoppy ales that stem from Australia. And that's pretty much what this is. So this is a part of Sudden Death's new core range series. I think they call it the modern core range. I'm guessing they also have the traditional then, because they also do a core range kind of series of lagers, which I also have to try. They're Zwickel, Pilsner, and Helles. So I guess this is like trying to make something more approachable for a modern audience. They don't talk about hops or anything. They're just talking about how this is like, they had an original, like a different pale ale in their core range. They changed it in favor of this that's a bit more modern, a bit more hazy, not as bitter, stuff like that. So, seems like they're going for something along the lines of maybe something in between hazy pale ale and then I guess the IPA or this XPA stuff. And then they called it an XPA. I mean, this looks like a New England IPA or a New England pale ale, really. It's very pale, so I guess that's also where it comes into extra pale ale, because this is like very, very bright yellow with an almost slightly greenish hue to it. Very nice looking white head, and it smells pretty good when I popped it. So let's check out the aroma on the Lübi Premium. I love the name and I love the design. Like this is, if you're from Lübeck, like this would be your local. I think that's really what they're trying to do. Like Flensburg has the Flensburg Pilsner. Like trying to do something like this is this city's beer. And Lübeck is a larger city. So that, it would make sense if people there drank Lübi, if they like modern beer, of course. But yeah, let's check this one out. Check out the aroma. Thanks to Beer Dome for the beer. It smells like a session beer. It's like citric, grapefruity, a little bit of a tropical fruit edge to it. Definitely smells like some modern hops in here, like some modern American hops or something. Could even be, it's hard to define. It's not like bursting out of the glass. It smells like very easygoing. A lot of Danish breweries make IPAs at 5.5%, similar to this, and smelling similar to this. There's a little bit of juiciness to it, not like loads, but there's some fruitiness to it. But a lot of Danish breweries make that beers like this and call them IPAs, although they're 5.5%. So yeah, lime zest or something as well. Limey, lemonade. It smells nice, smells easygoing. Let's try it. Cheers. Thanks a ton to Beer Dome for the beer. That's really easygoing. It's It's something you can really drink a lot of. This really reminds me a lot of like Danish session beer. So I just got cut off by the camera because it ran out of power. But it reminded me a little bit of Betsy's Lazarus IPA that was brewed for a while. We did it. I brewed that beer a couple of times, but we kind of retired it because it was not like super popular. But that was also, I think it was definitely darker than this. But it had a similar flavor profile, like light, easygoingly hoppy, a little bit of a fruity, I think, yeast character, almost New England-like. I was never called a New England IPA, I think. Or was it? Maybe it was defined online. I can't remember. It's been a long time since I brewed that beer. But it reminds me of something like that. Nothing that's really overly hoppy. The hops in that is somewhat sparing. It's not like heavily hop beer. But this is fresh, so it tastes kind of fresh and hoppy still. This is from June. And, well, we're actually September now. It's max like 2 months old, this can. But it's holding up fairly well. It's dry and sippy. It's not like the same full sweetness as you get in English or in hazy IPAs. I guess that's why they went for calling this an XPA instead. It's interesting. You know, it definitely screams core range beer, and it's not something that you're going to be like really fired up about if you're a hophead. But if you go to like a concert and like it's or something like that, like any kind of venue where you want to drink a lot of beer and have a few beers, something like this works. I think it works much better than what you usually get there. And beers like this that are not like super aggressively hoppy, you can compete often with what's on draft price-wise in like bar venues and music venues and stuff like that. Because often that's the big ringer. It's also like if you sell like a big dry hop double IPA at like a show, a concert, you're probably not going to sell that much. People will maybe buy like one can or one pint, and then they'll move on to something that's more sessionable because you're at a concert. You want to down some pints. Like I see this totally as like a music venue setting, or like it's just with a food beer and stuff. Like it's very inoffensive, but it's not like really boring or bad either. Because core range beers can be really hard because often core range beers needs to be really dialed in and like hit the nail on the head. There's few that does that. Like there's few core range beers that's just like boom, bam. Think of something like Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, for example. That's done to a T. Like that's just like still such a great beer. Also, okay, I talked about double IPAs. Heady Topper is a core range beer, I guess. And that's like done to a T. That's more aggressively hoppy than something like this. But we think of like lower strength core range beers, you want it to be something like this. Good quality, a good amount of flavor, but it's nothing that's going to rock your socks off. It's kind of like more of an approachable beer, and a beer that's, I guess, more for like a general audience. Like this is not necessarily for the beer geek that wants like the most heavy dry hops beer. But it's for the person who just like to kick back with some beer and with food or going to a show, whatever. It's like, oh, I like IPAs. I think I've tried like Brooklyn IPA, whatever, from other big breweries. Like if we think like in Denmark, if we think Royal, they like the Royal IPAs from Anarchist. Then opting for this instead is just like a better choice because it's more hoppy, but it's not aggressively hoppy. Like I think there's a lot of Danish breweries playing into this kind of territory as well. And it's, it doesn't seem too far off to, Danish core range IPA. It really reminds me of like Wildflower, for example. I think that's a little bit sweeter, but it's the same. It's like this fruity, slightly tropical, really nice, easygoing IPA that you can drink a lot of. And it's also, I think that's also actually not more than 5 point something these days. And those kind of beers are nice. They're never going to be mind-blowing beers, but they're just going to be nice session beers. And that's what this is. Core range beer can be really good, but it's something you drink to session. It's not something you necessarily drink to have a massive flavor experience. But it's good. It's drying. It's pithy. It's citrusy. Slightly tropical. Maybe some passion fruity vibes. There's some lemony lime zest underneath there. But it seems an orange. It seems very modern. It's in its take. And it seems like not exactly New England IPA, but something similar to it. Like it's not as full-on dripping, juicy, and sweet and whatnot as you get with some New England IPAs or I guess pale ales. It lacks that sweetness that you associate with New England IPA because this is more dry and more easygoing. Like I'd definitely rather drink this than a lot of hazy IPAs these days. Maybe this is actually what you should do when you make make extra pale ales when you make core range beers instead of making calling this a hazy IPA, because I think people will be a little bit disappointed if they call it New England IPA. But then again, some people also if it's that audience that doesn't know too much about what's what, they just know that hazy IPAs are hazy. They're like, oh yeah, this like a hazy IPA is really good. I enjoy it. It's good stuff. In terms of a grade, actually late 80s, 87, 88. It's rather good. I really sessionable, really enjoyable. But if you guys had this one, let me know what you thought of it. As always, remember to comment, subscribe, check out the Facebook fan page and all that social media jazz. Give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I'm gonna say cheers and thanks to Beer Dome for the beer, and see you guys in another beer review.